Hi everyone, this is Bonnie Miller, and we're going to explore some microfiction together, specifically hint fiction. These are stories that are 25 words or fewer. They hint at the story, and we have to infer the rest. First, let's read the story together, and we'll examine it really closely for meaning. To make it easier, I've copied the story onto the top of every slide. The story is Blind Date by Max Barry. She walks in and heads turn. I'm stunned. This is my setup? She looks 16. Of course, it's hard to tell through the scope. This is just 23 words, 25 if we count the title, and it contains all the things that make it a story. There's characterization, a plot, a setting, a conflict, there's intrigue, all the things that make for a great story. I would like for you to take a moment and try to figure out this story before we start talking about it. I want you to have your own ideas about what happens before we share ideas. So take a moment, reread the story, and answer the play posit question. Now let's look at some of the elements. First, characters. We have two, the narrator who tells the story from the first person point of view, and the woman he's meeting. We don't know their names, and they're both pretty flat. We know that the woman is very young and very beautiful. The narrator is stunned. We'll look more closely at him later and see that he isn't really affected by much. So for him to use the word stunned means that she really is very, very beautiful. We also know that they've never met. Their meeting has been arranged by someone else. The setting is a busy place. We know this because heads turn, multiple people turn to look at her. That's all we know about the setting, but that's enough. The point of view is first person. That means that we know the narrator's thoughts. In fact, that's all we know. We don't know anything else. We don't know what the woman is thinking, and there's no dialogue. So we only get his thoughts. There is a central conflict in the story, and it is inferred. We know that this is a setup and that they've never met. We also know that he's looking at her from a distance. So I want you to, how do we know that? I want you to think about it and answer that question. The scope is the most telling element of the story. The narrator is looking at the woman through a scope. The only time that we see a scope is really on a rifle. So that means that he is aiming a rifle at her. That's really all that we would look at. If there was something else, like a telescope or binoculars, those things have other names. So let's look at the title really closely also. We know what a blind date is, a date that's arranged by a mutual friend of the two daters. But in this case, blind date could have other meanings too. Click on the link and look at the various meanings of the word blind. I've summarized them here, but they're in more detail at Merriam-Webster. Of course, we know the definition sightless, but there are several others that could add meaning to the story too. Look at number 2. Unquestioning. The narrator doesn't know why he's going to shoot this woman, and he doesn't really seem to care. He is just following his instructions blindly. Number 3 means hidden from sight, which we assume he is. If people could see him with a rifle, there would be reactions from other people. They wouldn't just be staring at the beautiful woman. Most importantly is, I think, number 5. A blind is a concealed place that a person uses to hunt, like a duck blind. The narrator is hiding and hunting that woman. So he is in a blind, and it is an arranged meeting. So far, we have inferred that the woman is young and beautiful. She and the narrator have never met. He's aiming a rifle at her. Now let's look at the tone. We see several things that work together to create tone. First, he is surprised at seeing how young and beautiful she is. Next, we feel kind of a detachment from what is going on. He uses the phrase course instead of course, kind of the full phrase, that adds a casualness, kind of a nonchalance. It shows that he's not really affected by all that's happening. It is just business as usual for him. So, our narrator is a hitman. That is just what he does. He shows no emotion, no apprehension about the murder. It's just his job. We don't know who hired him or why he was hired. And we don't know what happens afterwards. We don't know anything about the woman because the story is about the killer, not about the target. Next, you're going to look at some stories with your discussion group. It takes a lot of discussion and a lot of examination to pull every bit of meaning you can out of those 25 words. You'll choose a few stories and help each other figure out what the whole story is. Remember that if your group doesn't respond to you, you can change groups. I hope all of this was helpful. Call me or email me if you have any questions. Have a good night. Bye.